my thing.
Nobody knew.
Yeah, and we went and did
We just went for a walk.
Spirit, yeah.
But it's going to be sunny this weekend, which means it should be nice. We have a nice view.
Not Seymour.
Is that the enthusiasm? There was one I saved that looked awesome. Is the starting shot doing that?
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. And before we start, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So, welcome to the Vancouver Aquarium. So, for those of you who haven't been here before or haven't been to a public programme, our mission here at Oceanwise is to inspire both the local and global community to become oceanwise. We're striving to increase understanding and wonder and appreciation of our oceans and empowering everybody to help protect the oceans and our planet as a whole. And one of our campaigns for this year is the Plastic Wise campaign. So the Plastic Wise campaign, we're encouraging people to break their plastic pattern and protect the ocean. And we've made a bit of a snazzy video, and as it's relevant to what we'll be talking about today, I shall play the video for you.
Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. So the website, if you want to find out about more community education programs, is here, education.ocean.org/Ocean Matters. You can subscribe here for updates, and I try as much as possible to have every event ASL signed. So if you have any questions, you can always contact me to see whether the events will be signed or not. One event coming up on the 22nd of May is the May edition of our Ocean Matters lecture series. And this lecture will be given by Sigal Bolshine from the University of McMaster. She studies these awesome but very weird fish, plain fin midshipmen. And they're weird for multiple reasons, but one of which is that the male fish actually guards the eggs. And the eggs are laid on the underside of rocks, and the males hang out under the rocks, guarding the eggs. and they have all sorts of strange and interesting reproductive behaviours. So if you want to come and learn more about these incredible fish, come along on the 22nd of May. And now I will introduce our speakers for today. So our speakers are Lucy Graham and Mathilde Gordon, who are Passage Adventures. Both of them are here because they're starting a 3-month-long kayak along the BC coast, and I will hand it over to them.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm super tall. Yeah, same picture. Great, thanks, Will. So, first of all, thanks to everyone for being here tonight. Hopefully when we come back, our room will be as crowded as what was in that picture. We're just going to assume everyone's enjoying the nice weather today. But thank you all for being here. I'd also like to start by acknowledging the First Nations people ourselves. In Australia, we always acknowledge what we call traditional owners in Australia, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And in Australia, we still have a lot of work to do. We don't have any treaties and sovereignty wasn't ever ceded. So we're trying to be a part of that ongoing conversation and would like to pay respects to that plight. And in the conversation of inclusivity, say hi to Ava. It's really great to have ASL, we call it Ausland in Australia, ASL with us at all events that we can have, because it makes it more inclusive, and a more inclusive society is a better one. Great. So we're really excited to be here this week. Mathilde and I are going to talk into the microphone because apart from people sitting in the room today, we're also talking to YouTube, which is exciting. Before today, we didn't even know YouTube could do live. So we're learning new things every day. And yeah, usually we would move around a lot more, but we'll stay here for today. Yeah, so thanks for being here. We're going to swap around and I'm going to hand over to Mathilde to tell you a little bit more about where we're from.
Okay, so we're from a very, very warm part of the world. We're from Cairns in far north Queensland, Australia. You can see it on the little map there. It's right next to the Great Barrier Reef, so we've had the amazing luck of being able to dive and scuba dive and snorkel on the Barrier Reef as often as we like. Sure, we don't have a boat, but we go out with some friends. So you can see that it's a pretty special place. It also borders the Daintree Rainforest, which is an incredible place with lots of waterfalls and creeks and an incredible abundance of animals. So back home, you can see Lucy jumping for joy in the picture on the left. Is that me? No, that's definitely you. And whoever that is, they're jumping because it's about 30 degrees Celsius and the water's at about 26 degrees Celsius and we've probably just come out from a lovely swim. So that's on one of our practice paddles back home. Obviously very different conditions to what we're about to do. And are you going to talk about that, Lucy? All right, so look, this is the contrast between back home and where we're going to be for 3 months.
So you've got a little bit of an idea of where we're from. Mathilde and I met at university 5 years ago. She was studying ecology and zoology and I was studying sustainability. That is a degree. And people always ask. So we have done a lot of expeditions together, nothing of this nature. But what we're going to be doing, as you can see up there, is kayaking. Well, it's 2,103 kilometres if all goes to plan, from a place called Glacier Bay in Alaska, which is just north of Juneau, to Vancouver Island. We're doing it single-use plastic-free, which means that we have to prepare all our own food. As much as we can, we've sourced gear that doesn't include plastic and tried not to get new gear where we can. Plastic packaging, yeah. we're raising money for two really incredible organisations. You can see their logos up the top there. On the left, you have the Living Oceans Society. They're based in British Columbia. They do a lot of different kinds of ocean conservation, and we're particularly interested in their marine debris work. They do cleanups all over the BC coast. They enter that into data systems that helps to lobby government and institutions and work with community. In Australia, we have the Tangaroa Blue Foundation. The Tangaroa Blue Foundation does a very similar thing, but it's nationwide in Australia, and Australia is a very big place. So you can imagine we have cleanups going every week in Australia, and they also count every bit of rubbish, and every bit of rubbish goes to a database which helps us make changes in the government, in institutions and industry, and with communities as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about the first-hand examples of that as we go. And in the beginning, we were just going to kayak and raise money. And then as we built a community and found help and got connected, we realized we can have talks like this. We can run workshops. We had 40 people at a workshop on the weekend learning how to make deodorant and toothpaste and bags and wax wraps, and we'll do another one when we get back. So there's been a lot of things, and as well cleanups. We've done 5 in Australia, running them ourselves. We've been to a lot of cleanups, but we've run 5 cleanups now, and we'll be participating in at least 2 here in Canada. So that's what we're doing. To give you a bit of perspective, saying we're going to paddle 2,000 kilometres, but looking at it's different. So that's Canada. Oh, has this got one of those pointy? Oh my God, yes. So this is where we start up in Glacier Bay, and we follow this purple line all the way down to the bottom of Vancouver Island here. We'll be going through what's called the Inside Passage. Some of you may have been on cruise ships through there. If we zoom in a little bit, this is what it looks like. So in this area, we're quite protected from all these islands, which makes us happy. Our 2 points of most, concern is here, the first stretch. We have some islands here, but this is the Pacific coming in. And then here is just like the ocean coming at us, right? There's a place called Cape Caution there, and kayakers have been stuck for like a week, 2 weeks, 2 days, not stuck at all. It's almost 100 kilometres of just cliff face, and you have to do it on a calm day. So you just have to wait for really low winds. It's so ominous that kayakers have built a little hut in the forest, but it's exciting. So yeah, and then we paddle. We were originally going to paddle all the way down to Port Renfrew, but we've decided to finish in Victoria. So we'll be paddling all the way down here. And that's what it looks like to paddle 2,000 kilometres, and we'll be doing it over 3 months. Easy. So that's what we're going to do, but Mathilde's going to tell you why we care.
So marine debris affects a lot of different things in the world. For us, I think one of the main reasons that it really touches our heart is for the creatures living in the ocean, the amazing ecosystems that are affected by this, but also how easy it is to change our habits and to make a difference in this realm. So like we said before, we live next to the Great Barrier Reef. There's a lot of species of turtles there. We've both volunteered at the Turtle Rehabilitation Centre and seen firsthand the effects that plastic bags and straws and other plastic items have on the turtles. Each turtle that comes into the centre is sick for some reason or another. If they've eaten plastic, it often means that they get pneumonia and other diseases that prevent them from being able to dive and feed. So it's called floaters syndrome when they get that sick. To have turtles at the rehabilitation centre, it costs about $1,000 per turtle per month. So it's pretty insane workload, and economically it's also pretty crazy. So we also have an island back home called Lord Howe Island, where what was the percentage of birds? 90% of the birds on the island have plastic inside them. So they've done autopsies on a lot of the birds because they've obviously eventually died as they can't eat any more food. Their stomachs are full, and it's just an insane percentage. Obviously, it also has economic impacts. So when people come to places like the Great Barrier Reef, or they go diving in Southeast Asia, or they walk along a beach in Greece and they see plastic on the beach, then it has an impact on tourism. So if you want to look at it from a money perspective, then it definitely has an impact in that realm. And it's not just our salt waterways that are affected. We have platypus in Australia, very strange looking creatures. When they were first discovered, people thought that the naturalists had actually stitched together different parts of animals and brought them to the table saying, look at this new species I found. But it actually exists, so you can see that it's got something plastic around its neck there. It's estimated that by 2050, so just over 30 years' time, there's going to be more plastic than fish by weight in the ocean. It's absolutely insane. It's about 7 tons of rubbish a day that gets deposited in the ocean. And yeah, the amount of animals, it's not just the big, large animals that we see that get affected. It's also the tiny little like zooplankton and that then get affected by the plastic, and then other animals eat them, and it carries up the food chain, and eventually if you eat fish, then it ends up in our stomachs as well, so it has human health impacts. Yeah, so pretty crazy. So you want to go to the next slide, please? That's you.
So Mathilde, talk a little bit about why we care. And I think what we want to say is like this is not a new problem, and it's not a new change that we're trying to create. Like, I remember when I was a little girl, my mum was campaigning, trying to get our local area plastic free. And this is the time to do it. Like, if you haven't done it yet, this is the time to be doing the plastic free thing, because it's like everyone's doing it. I mean, the Queen, she's banned plastic in all her palaces, right? So if the Queen doesn't need a straw, we certainly don't need one. There's countries like India that have banned all forms of disposable plastic in the capital city, which is like, you know, amazing, because they also have really bad plastic problems. Western Australia, in our state back home in Queensland, we have a plastic bag ban coming in July, which is very exciting. You're seeing countries like France, which has not only banned plastic bags, but they've banned disposable plates, disposable cutlery, disposable cups, and just in England in the last week, they've introduced a bill to Parliament to do the same. So it's not just individuals now, it's not just governments, it's not just local councils, it's entire countries. And if entire countries can make that change, it's something that we can do ourselves. And also, an entire country can't make a change until its citizens ask for that change. And so that's what we're trying to tell people about, is like, we need that overwhelming voice now. We need everyone to be having this conversation and to be talking about this change. This is the time to be a part of it. This is how you be cool, just if you hadn't got there yet. So what we're going to do, that's what Mathilde's going to talk to, what we have been doing, sorry.
Yeah, so what do? We have, like Lucy mentioned before, we've done a lot of cleanups back home with the Tangaroa Blue Foundation. You can see some of the photos down here were at Chile Beach, for example, which is right up the northeastern tip of Australia. On this beach, we were volunteering there for 5 days. We cleaned up 6 kilometres of the shoreline, and we picked up 7 tons of rubbish, which is a lot of numbers and a little bit hard to imagine, but essentially you would stand on the beach or you'd sit down with your bag and you'd be in the exact same spot for 10 minutes picking up rubbish. And as you were picking up rubbish, you're watching more wash into the shore. And you're thinking, where is this all coming from? When is it going to end? This is absolutely insane. And I think for both of us, one of the big triggers that made us think about plastics is when we did beach cleanups at the beginning. And we got really angry at the world. We were like, why are humans humans so bad? Why do they do this? Why do they keep throwing their rubbish into the ocean? And we were picking up toothbrushes and shoes and plastic bags and bottles and plates, and then, you know, came to the realization that any of those things could have come from us. So we do lots of cleanups back home, and like Lucy mentioned before, all of that information goes onto a database. That information has been used to stop plastic and other rubbish at the source. So an example is we were finding a specific kind of foam that had like sticky membrane on the top of it, and we realized that it was coming from the Bureau of Meteorology. They were releasing weather balloons, which eventually were just coming down to the earth and ending up in the ocean and washing up on our shores. So Tangaroa Blue contacted them saying, hey, it's the 21st century, there's kind of other technology out there, how about we just don't do the weather balloon thing? In more words than that. And after a couple of years, they completely stopped it altogether because of that exact reason. Another example is on the west coast of Australia, there's some lobster farming, and they use strapping bands around the crates on the boats. A lot of those bands end up in the ocean. They found them, they've got tags on them, contacted some of the fishermen and some of the companies, and a large number of them have stopped using the bands altogether or replaced them with completely 100% compostable options. It also has a lot of biosecurity, like it helps biosecurity as well in Australia. So we have, for example, a lot of pathogens and bacteria and other organisms can come floating on the rubbish and end up in Australia. We're an island, as you all know, and we're already pretty greatly affected by invasive species. So we have found rubbish before that's got some really weird stuff on it, and we contact biosecurity and they can come and have a look at it and identify whether anything bad has been carried into the country. Another example is we found hundreds of water bottles on a beach one day of the exact same water bottle type. All the labels were super clear, and they had a use-by date that was many, many years in the future. So they had just been made. They were new bottles. They hadn't been floating around in the ocean for very long. We thought, okay, this is kind of weird. We've found like over 1,000 of the same bottles here, and called border security essentially, and they went out and found an illegal fishing boat that had been fishing in the northern waters of Australia and just drinking water and dumping it overboard, or some of their crates had fallen over into the water as well. So we sort of found little clues that have led to the discovery of some of these things. So we don't do just beach cleanups. We've also back home in Brisbane done some cleanups through the mangroves and the rivers, which is not quite the... It hasn't been floating in the ocean for very long, but I mean, it hasn't been floating in the ocean at all. It's still in the rivers, but it is, of course, going to lead into the ocean. What we find there is more just rubbish that people have just littered, have just left behind. Yeah, one day we found 535 straws in one cleanup that was only about 2 hours. Yeah, absolutely insane. The cleanups are really, really fun. They feed you and you learn a lot. You get to camp out for a whole week, and you're also standing on these pristine beaches in the most remote places all over the country. And although it's depressing if you look down, if you look up, it reminds you, totally reminds you about why you're doing this and the reason behind picking up rubbish for 5 days straight. It's also amazing to look behind you after a cleanup and see the clean beach behind you, and know that that data is going towards something important, because Tangaroa Blue's motto is actually, if all we do is clean up, that's all we'll ever do. And that brings us to the next slide. So we have to tackle this problem at the source. So Lucy and I have been living single-use plastic-free for just over 2 years now. It came about through a number of reasons, like I said, the cleanup, but we also discovered some great blogs online that made us realize that people, like students living in New York, in a big city, were still managing to produce like a tiny little jar of rubbish per year, and then eventually nothing. And so we found lots of inspirational people around us who were doing the same thing. When we first started, we had just moved into a house together, so it was sort of a clean slate, which was nice. What we did is we had a discussion about it, and we thought, well, I don't think, we don't actually use that much plastic in our lives. So how about we just go around the house and really try and assess what we need to replace, because surely it's not that much. It was pretty insane. Like, obviously a lot of it came out of the fridge. But a lot of toiletries, for example, is another source of single-use plastics, like your shampoos, conditioners, soaps that are wrapped in plastic, things like that. So we made a lot of discoveries. And then the first thing we did was to not try and just get rid of everything and replace it in one go. So we wanted to sort of start and be strategic, because it is really overwhelming at first. And, some of our first shops, we would just walk into the supermarket and go, okay, it's time to eat apples for the rest of our lives, because everything is in a package. And and I think for me, definitely, I remember the first time I went to a bulk food store, and I was like, oh, this is great, chocolate and muesli, and we're going to get some dishwashing detergent. And I got to the front, and the bill was about $150, and it filled up a bag maybe like this. And I thought, what, this is crazy, I don't think I can do this, this is insane. And thought about it a bit more, and then realized, well, what's the point of me studying zoology and ecology and working in conservation and trying to protect the world if I come from a family that is privileged, I work, I'm educated, so I should be spending my money towards something that's going to come back and help the environment and therefore help me. And then I sort of had to talk myself into how great bulk food stores were, and that I could redirect my money in that direction. I also decided that the best thing would be to maybe just avoid the chocolate and treats aisle, because that definitely brought it up by a couple of dollars. And now, I wouldn't say it's easy all of the time, but it's just part of everyday life now. It's just routine. The hardest thing is traveling without it, but because you're outside of that routine. But now, it's very easy to walk into a supermarket, or even better, a local grocery store, and know where we have to go and what we have to do, and take our own bags and all these kinds of things. So, next slide.
So, and to add to what Mathilde was saying, you don't just have to use bulk food stores if they're too expensive. People feel like they can be priced out of being plastic free sometimes, and you can do things I know in my supermarket at Woolworths in Australia, I can get a box of oats for $1. It's in a cardboard box, right? So obviously that's probably not paying for the cost of producing that box of oats. But if you're in the point of your life where you actually can't afford more than $1 for a box of oats, then there's options. You just have to find them. And sometimes it's taking the time to spend half a day figuring out what your options are. When I moved to Brisbane, which I did 2 years ago, a new city, I spent a day scourging all of the delis and my supermarkets and bulk foods and the markets to find and did a cost benefit analysis, because I was just coming out of being a student and I had no money, but I still managed to do it. So it's not always too expensive. You just got to find that option. It's expensive for your time, and I think that's something that we all have a challenge with. So we campaign, we clean up, we run workshops, we build community, and next week we're going to start paddling. We've been training, we've been preparing for 2 years now. We've been training full on for about the last 8 months. Here's some pictures from our training. This was at the start of our first big paddle together. When I asked Mathilde to do this with me, she hadn't paddled more than a day before. So I think she's pretty brave. I've been kayak guiding since I was 17, so I've been around kayaks, you'd say, my adult life, if you can count a 17-year-old as an adult. And we've basically been doing, every week we've been in the water doing a paddle. We've done some expeditions on the weekends. We took a couple of weeks off work to do an expedition. We flew down to Sydney to try out some colder waters. We've practiced our rolling, which is going under the water and coming back up again if you get knocked over, and rescues if we can't do that because we're going to have really heavy boats. And we've also been doing a lot of cross-training in the gym. We were going to the gym for cross-training about 3 or 4 times a week. And so we've learnt to be tired all the time. And we're working, so we were both working as well as planning this trip, as well as training, which I think that I'm going to be like more rested some days on this paddle than preparing for this paddle, quite honestly. We say it's going to be a hard trip, but it will be simple. We have to get from A to B, take in the weather and the tides. So we don't have to, like, you know, do a million things you have to do every day in your normal life, which is sometimes terrifying. So, I mean, we could talk to you about the kind of training we did all day, but I thought rather than boring you with that, we could show you a video, because videos are fun. So this video is when we went down to Sydney to train with Rob Mercer. He's like, I don't know how old he is. I'd say he's like 70 or 80. He's like the god of kayaking. He taught us some amazing stuff. We spent 2 days with him practicing our stroke, our rolling, our rescues. This is the kind of guy who like capsizes a kayak and then just like hangs out and then gets into it upside down and then rights himself again. Or the kind of guy who will just like halfway through a conversation go upside down and then finish his sentence up the other side. So he's an amazing guy. He taught us so much, and he put up with our bad jokes as well, which is always a plus. So let's have a watch. It might be quite long. Has just successfully rolled a kayak. Yeah. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And we're here with Rob Mercer. We have spent the day learning the best technique that we can have.
It's time, so take me away across the ocean, out in the horizon. The night is falling.
Today?
I've learnt a more efficient way of paddling forward.
Yeah?
What I was doing. Different like twisting positions and arm positions.
Some better paddling techniques, which I'm really happy about. I can get a lot further with a lot less effort, so more efficiency. I've learnt how to roll again, which makes me really happy to get those skills back. And just like to learn a little bit more about using all of my body. It's pretty cold. We're going to have colder in Canada, so get used to it. Although in Canada, we're not going in the water. Except when I push her in. So that's a little insight to some of the training we've done. I think the water was 18 degrees that day, or like maybe 17, which for us is totally unreasonable. But you can imagine the air temperature in Glacier Bay, I think this week is a top of like -1. Yeah. So we're going to be pretty sad if we end up in the water there. But we have some things here we're going to show you. So this has been a new addition to our kayaking gear. which is a dry top. So I don't know if you've ever seen anyone put their head in one of these, but they're... No, I'm not demonstrating. You can watch it on our Facebook. It's up there. It has this very small gap that you have to get your head through, and on here as well for your wrists, and down the bottom. So this is gonna, if we go upside down, we'll have our skirt on, which is the thing you see us locked into the boats with, and that will keep the most of us dry except our heads. So it will come up with a brain freeze, but hopefully not more than that. And so that's, I guess, like in our training and our preparation, one of our biggest concerns being from the tropics is the cold. You can get hypothermia in the tropics, but it's not as easy. So we've been doing a lot of preparation for that scenario. In that video, we need to give a shout out to our friend Dennis. You would have seen a guy rolling with us. Dennis, since we moved to Brisbane, has trained with us pretty much every day. He's let us borrow his car whenever we needed to. He's bought tea to all of the things we do. And he's doing his own trip kayaking through the fjordlands of New Zealand at the end of this year, and has also decided to do it plastic-free after being kayaking with us for a while. So we're just like, thanks, Dennis, you're a legend. Couldn't have done it without you. It's been a real inspiration having someone else to, I mean, there's only two of us. It's sometimes you don't know if you're crazy or if you're sane when you're coming up with these ideas. So it's been good to have a sounding board. And also know that he's going on to do his own thing as well. I'm going to try and make this big again.
No, just go next.
No. Nope. This is not. Before, we're not technology people. Oh, there we go. That one. Okay, great. Thank you, Will. The thing about being an adventure woman is that technology can sometimes overwhelm you. You may have noticed that the music was a little loud in that last film. Mathilde and I have learnt a lot of things since we started doing this trip, including how to make videos on YouTube, how to run websites, and how to do a bunch of things. So I'm going to let Mathilde talk about our preparation.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of our first videos. We've improved since then. So you can see some of the photos of our preparation over in the left top corner. That's us at home plotting every single one of our charts for the entire Inside Passage, which were all sponsored by Marine Press, which is incredible. We also have one of my colleagues of mine just decided to give me his old GoPro with all of the attachments and everything. So that was incredible. So we often joke about how if we just did this paddle just for the fun of doing the paddle, we probably would have taken well under a year to prepare for it. But because we're trying to make all of those connections and trying to reach out and tell people about the journey, there's a lot more steps involved, which we love. So we're going to be taking a sponsored drone, 2 GoPros and another camera to take footage of this. And we've also spent a lot of money on this Garmin InReach device, which means that this connects to your phone, and you can take photos with your phone and upload it via satellite to the internet. Yeah. I don't know if you can do it directly to Instagram. Can you, Ethan? You can. Yeah. Scary and cool at the same time. So it's also got maps on it and tells you where you are, and you can send text messages and emails, and there's an SOS function. So in an emergency, this is going to be our friend. And also to get likes.
We're not sending anyone emails.
We're not sending anyone emails. Don't email us. No, speaking on that, actually, we have an awesome support team. One of them is Rachel, who's in this room. So they won't be... And Ethan, a new addition to our support team. So these guys won't be coming along with us on the trip, but they'll be helping us with safety, with reaching out to social media, and with notifying any of the people that we're doing events with, if we're arriving late, if we're on schedule, and all those kinds of things. So they're all an incredible bunch of people, and we feel very lucky to be working alongside them. not everything goes to plan, which we've learnt. And you can see the help needed sign. That was a drastic call out a couple of weeks ago. So we needed to get our kayaks from here in Vancouver up to Juneau in Alaska. So we organized all of that. Well, Lucy organized all of that, and decided, that I had to pick up the kayaks from Surrey and take them to another place for them to be shipped up to Juneau. And the shipping place was going to be in Vancouver. So we were like, okay, have to get kayaks point A to B in the same city, just have to find a car, everything will be fine. And then about 5 days out from needing to get the kayaks to where they had to be, Lucy realized that it was Washington, Vancouver in Washington. So I had just arrived in Vancouver. I had only the friends that I'd made in the first few days, which are awesome. And I somehow needed to find a car with roof racks and someone who was willing to drive about 8 hours return to Tacoma with 2 kayaks across the US border. And we did it. We did it. And it was through a connection that I made at a board game night. So you should always go to board game nights. I just said that I needed a hand, and a lovely Canadian said, I love driving. You can borrow my truck and I'll come with you. And I also learnt about US border protection that day, and that they're not always very nice people. But we did it, and our kayaks have arrived in Juneau. So that's amazing. Actually, speaking of our kayaks, that's me sitting in one of them in the top right corner at the shop the other day, and they're amazing. They were sponsored to us by Boreal Design Kayaks, and we're super excited. So excited to be kayaking in them. We get to see them and play in them next week. And a lot of the preparation has been focused around food. So, how do you do an expedition without single-use plastic? A couple of years ago, Lucy and I would have gone hiking in the woods, in the wilderness, and we would have still dehydrated our meals ourselves most of the time. And then we would have put those meals in individual Ziploc bags. So for a week of kayaking, you'd maybe have, I don't even know, over 100 Ziploc bags. Yeah, pretty crazy. And through an incredible, so we had to think about, how are we going to have our food dehydrated and to keep it dry, not just for when it's out in the boats, but to keep it dry for when it's in storage. Some of them will be in storage for 3 months or 2.5 months. And how are we going to do that without using the Ziploc bags? And we did test this out back home in the tropics where it's 90 degrees humidity and it also rains a lot, and we figured if it can work there, then we'll be totally fine here. And then our friend tagged us. We hadn't thought much about how we were going to cook 500 meals, by the way. We both love eating and don't enjoy cooking as much, so it was going to be a problem. Theoretically, I was going to arrive in Vancouver and have 2 weeks to do all of these extra preparations, plus cook 500 meals, dehydrate all of them, pack them into bags, and would be on our merry way at the beginning of May. And Lucy would join me at the end and go, great job, let's go. Thankfully, that didn't have to happen. Instead, our friend tagged us in a video of a cafe called the Loopy Cafe, and they're a waste-free cafe in Vancouver. So all of the furniture, for example, in their shop is made from upcycled materials. They buy food that would otherwise go to waste. They buy it at a price that's even higher than what it is on the shelves. And instead of going to the bins, they put that food out on the street at the front of their cafe once a week, and people who are in need and who want free, delicious fruit and vegetables can go and take whatever they want for free. They also run community dinners where people can come along and talk about why the Loopy Cafe exists and the values of being a community and working together. And they also make these Loopy boxes, so you can pay to get a Loopy box made for you every week, which has an assortment of fruit and vegetables and homemade jams and chutneys and things like that. So we thought, okay, great, maybe we can use their kitchen to cook all this food in. Very optimistic still, and this was in January, and we emailed Lisa from the Loopy Cafe, and we asked her for this request, and she called us back and said, we want to cook all of your meals and start dehydrating them before you get to Canada because your original plan was never going to work. And we were just blown away, and we thought, okay, that's amazing. And we asked her, you know, like, Lisa, how much do you want for this? How much do you want for this crazy catering? And she said, nothing. I want to give all of this to you for free. So we have a breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and dessert for 2 of us for 3 months, plus extra meals. And it's all vegan, which is awesome, and it's all highly nutritious stuff. So we can't even begin to put into words how lucky and how amazed we are by their gratitude. So we have an example of how we've packed the food. Lucy. So what we've done is, so this is a sponsored Aquapack dry bag, and they last forever. And inside of them, we have our dehydrated meals, and they're packed 3 times in newspaper that was also donated. And so we pack the meals like that in little cute packages, and then they go inside the dry bags, and inside the dry bags we have there might not be some in there, some silica gel packs. So we just went to Mech, or any camping store really, and we asked, do you have any gel packs? And they were like, come out the back. And there was a bag like this high, and they're like, this is how many we have after a month. You can take as much as you want. They're just little desiccant sachets. So we've put them in the bag as well, just in case we do get any moisture inside of them. Our original plan, we're carrying a maximum of 2 weeks of food at a time. So that's about 6 or 7 of these bags in our kayaks at a time. It's a lot of food. Our original plan was to put all of the breakfasts for the 2 weeks in one and all of the lunches in another one. And then we realized that if we did that and we did get the inside of the bag wet, it would mean that our breakfast or lunch in 2 weeks' time could have gone moldy in that time frame. So what we've done is each bag is about 2 to 3 days. So if we do get any moisture in the bag, then we'll just be eating the food in 2 to 3 days anyway, and it'll probably be fine because we're essentially kayaking in a fridge. Yeah, okay, and yeah, so that's basically how we've done it. Single-use plastic-free food-wise, and then we've tried to source our equipment without like single-use packaging. We've also tried to find second-hand things as much as we can on Craigslist and borrowing things off friends like radios. And Value Village has been my best friend as well for clothes. So yeah, there's a few steps we can take. Yes. Thanks.
So we're just realizing that we have not allowed heaps of time for questions, and we want to move on quickly. So we're going to stay a little bit later, and we're happy to hang around and answer any questions you want to ask us in person. But first of all, this is like one of my favorite quotes. You've probably heard it all before. It's, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. We have so many people say to us, oh my God, it's great that you're doing this. Like, I just couldn't ever do that. And it's like, well, you can. Like, you can. You've chosen not to, but you can do it. And so it's like, are you prioritizing it? You know, is it something that in your day is meaningful? So what we want to sort of say at all of these events is it's not just about what we're doing. It's also about what you're doing. And now is the time. Like, it's already too late now. It's not too late in that it doesn't make a difference if you do something now, but I'm saying we should have started 10 or 20 years ago. And it's when we all get together, the change that like you can make through one action that is amazing. We've been so humbled by the support we've had, but also just as an example, the week before I left for Canada, we ran a cleanup, and that 535 straws we picked up. This girl, it was her first ever cleanup, and she said, I've been listening to this straw talk for, you know, ages, and it never resonated with me. But now I picked up 535 straws in a space of 200 meters. That's all we cleaned up on the Brisbane River. I will never use a straw again. A straw is something so simple to give up, you know, a coffee cup, a plastic bag. Don't try and change it all at once, but make a change. At the start, Ruth showed you a video, and we won't show it again, but what we're asking people to do is give up something for the duration of our journey and pledge with Oceanwise. Oceanwise is amazing. They will send you an email every month helping you, suggesting what you could give up this month, giving you tips on how to do that and helpful hints. And they give you a lot of support. But even I've got like a group of Year 3 students in the middle of Queensland who are all giving up wrappers in their lunch boxes for the duration of our journey. And one of them proudly came into their school room at the start of the week last week with no wrappers in their lunch. And they said, I'm starting now, I don't care. You know, and so like, that's a 6-year-old. If a 6-year-old can do it, and that 6-year-old's making their own lunch. This is a very area that's very low socioeconomic, and they're probably making their own lunch. So, you know, if a 6-year-old can sort that out, anybody can. A lot of people feel uncomfortable when I say that, but it is something that you can do. It's whether or not you're making it a priority in your life. And so it's all about trying to choose what is your priorities. Is having a coffee in a takeaway cup worth our oceans? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Like, what is your priority? There's some small changes you can make that creates that movement for change. I'm just going to keep going. So we are actually going to have a webinar in Prince Rupert. That's a month after we've been paddling. So that's like a third of the way through our trip. You can hear about how much we like each other or don't like each other by that stage. Some of the challenging moments we've had. There's a big crossing just before Prince Rupert, that first one I pointed out to you where we're exposed to the Pacific. So you can hear about how much fun that was. We'll be sharing this on our Facebook, our website, our newsletter, our blog, and our Instagram. So we're trying to like cover everyone. We haven't got mail or fax, so if you're in that time, we won't be able to help. But we would love. Zoom is a technology that allows like 200 video people to join. So we get to see all your little faces in there. And there's like schools joining from Australia and Canada and America and people everywhere. So we're super excited about that. We're just going to quickly say thank you to a couple of people. We're not like particularly special people. We decided to do something and we're determined and we're passionate. We come from a certain background that allows us a certain amount of privilege, but we couldn't have done this without the support of the people who've got behind us. So Aquapack has given us all our dry bags for the trip. Kokatat has given us stuff like our dry suits, our thermals, our t-shirts, our throw bags, our rescue lines, that kind of stuff. Wind paddle, because we're doing this for fun, is a sail for kayaks. So when the wind's with us, we put our sails up and we go twice the speed, which we're pretty excited about. Cardzilla, they made us these pretty shirts. Look how professional we are. And they also made us a bunch of badges we're using for perks on our fundraising. We already mentioned the Loopy Cafe, amazing. Boreal Designs for our awesome kayaks are really, really, can't really do a kayaking trip without them, so pretty essential. And then we have Werner Paddles, which is our paddles. We have She Flies down the bottom here, which is our drone sponsorship. She Flies teaches women and young women to fly drones. A woman started it with the acknowledgement that in a classroom, women will stand back and a lot of boys, this is mostly with young children, boys will take the control and start driving and the girls will just stand in the corner like, wow, that's cool, but won't actually take control. So She Flies does drone lessons solely for girls, and they sent us a drone to take along with us. And the last one was Marine Press, which is 45 charts, digital charts as well. Yeah, so much stuff. And Lunette down in the corner, which is really, if you guys don't know what menstrual cups are, you might be a lady, you might be a man, but it means that we don't have to have tampons or pads out there with us. They're reusable, they last 10 years, they cost $30. It's more time efficient, it's better for the environment, it doesn't have any toxic shock syndrome, and I liked mine. Yeah, So they're all of the people who've got behind us. It's pretty outstanding. We never thought we'd say that. So,
And they're just our sponsors.
yeah, they're just our sponsors. They're not even the everyday people who have made our lives so amazing in the last 2 years. All of this is where you can find us and follow us. And
where was that?
up the top here,
Thank you.
all of these ones. Our website, Facebook, Instagram. As we said, we've got a support team. They're going to send out 3 blogs and 3 newsletters during our trip, so you can sign up to that on our website. Also, as we said, we're fundraising for 2 incredible organisations. If it's $5, if it's $5,000, if it's $50,000, it makes a difference. If you can't afford to donate, take an action. If you can afford to donate, take an action anyway. Thanks for listening, guys. It's been awesome, and we're happy to do some questions. Ruth, how long should we do questions for? A few minutes. Yeah, so we have a few minutes, and like we're totally fine to hang outside and answer any questions we don't now. So I think.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Great. You just stand there.
Yeah. Is there any way I can put this down? Because it's just like that, so I can see her. Oh, thank you. That's even better. Okay, so question here. I'm wondering, have you two ever considered in the summer trip, are you going to be...
Oh, that was me. Oh, God. I did it.
Testing? Testing. Have you considered on your trip, will you be going to Juneau at all?
So we were originally looking at doing beach cleanup in Juneau with the Living Oceans Society, but it didn't work logistically. Also, the west coast of Vancouver Island is pretty insane in terms of surf, weather conditions and things like that. So we figured for our first 3-month kayaking trip, we would go on the inside of the island, but we also both love to be there. We will, our beach cleanup with the Living Oceans Society is in the northwest corner of Vancouver Island. Do you remember what the park's called? Or the beach? I don't remember, but we stop in Port Hardy, and we drive exactly like across. And then we'll be like up in that north, and we're, so the Living Oceans Society has a dedicated team of volunteers who do remote beach cleanups. We can go out there and join them, and we'll take some video and bring it back to you. We did ask if volunteers could join, but it's pretty hectic and expensive and remote. But you can jump on their website if you want to and email them. So it's a high barrier sort of thing to do. If you can make it through email, you've got halfway there. Any other questions?
I have one more. I'm just curious, just in terms of your cooking and stuff. I know you talked about not using like plastic plates and things like that, and I know there's a lot of islands that people actually use plastic plates and forks and knives and things like that. So, are you going to be encouraging people to collect those items, and once they collect them, do you teach them what to do with them?
Do you mean the people that use them in their everyday life, or are we using them? Both. Okay. So we don't use any of that stuff. We have like reusable plates that we take with us, a bowl and a spoon. That's all you need to get by in life. For everyday people, this is the thing, like transitioning from the waste world that we live in to no waste world is a big one. What do we do with the rubbish, like as we transition? It's a huge question I could talk about. For example, China's just stopped taking recyclable items from Australia, from Canada, from countries all over the world, and it's presenting a huge problem. Because like simply in Australia, we don't have the infrastructure. So to say recycle, like, it's pretty meaningless a lot of the time. If you followed where your recyclable items go, like you can recycle hard plastics like plates and cutlery, but
do they actually get recycled is an entirely another question. A lot of the recycling that actually made it to China, the reason they've stopped is because their warehouses are full. They don't have time, they don't have space to store it anymore because it's like banking up. So yeah, I would say just stop using it and now. And find something like upcycling, making it into art, or something else amazing. There's some really amazing things. People like stuff bottles full of soft plastic that's waste, and then build houses out of it, for example. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with waste.
Yeah, also good to note that about 1% of all the recycling materials in Canada, the things that you put into your recycling box, about 1% actually get recycled. So the other 99% often goes to landfill. That's why it goes reduce, reuse, recycle. It's like 3 down on that triangle. It's a pretty dodgy triangle anyway. Yeah, especially because of this. Any other questions? No questions about a question. Go, Ruth.
You said that you're only taking 2 weeks of food at a time. So how are you picking up the rest of the food?
Good question. Yeah. So what we're doing tomorrow is sending away some resupply boxes. So the resupply boxes will be sent to 6 different locations. In them we'll have our food for the leg of the trip. It'll have our plastic-free toiletries, so we've made toothpaste, we've made moisturizer, although I think it's going to be quite wet. We have toilet paper that was wrapped in like recycled paper. We have our charts in the next section of the trip, and books to read. Charts as in maps for the ocean. So 3 of those boxes will be in the United States, in Alaska. So tomorrow we'll be driving to Point Roberts and we'll be sending them away because it costs $500 to send one box from Canada to Juneau, whereas if you go from the States, it costs $50. Definitely doing that option. And the other reason that we're doing that is because we're a little bit worried about the reaction to a bit worried of their reaction to hundreds of individually wrapped food items in newspaper, and a few people have made the comment that it looks a lot like drugs. So we want to be there at customs so we can talk to them and make them understand why we're doing the trip, rather than take a flight to Juneau and then arrive at customs and then have them refuse us. If they refuse us here, then we can at least talk about some other options. If they take away 500 meals from us, I don't even know. And if you know anyone who lives in Bella Bella, we're trying to send them to people rather than post offices, because who knows what will happen in a post office. Whereas we hopefully, when we send them to people, we know them, we can trust them, and we don't worry about our food. So I think ultimately, if we don't have our, if the food's spoiled when we get there or it never arrives, we're going to go to the shops and buy food, and there will be plastic involved. But I think you can say we did our very best.
Just a question about how far are you planning on paddling each day? Have you got a set time? And where will you be staying at night? Have you got tents?
So even my sister thought we were sleeping in the kayaks. We're doing this for fun, so we're not sleeping in the kayaks. A lot of people watched the Ocean Film Festival and then told us we were going to get butt boils, because that's what happened to the people who rowed across the Pacific. But we're getting out of our kayaks and we're going to jump in the creek every now and again. It's going to be cold, but it'll be worth it. We have a tent that we will share. We also have 2 hammocks. We love hammocking, and sometimes we need our own space. So we'll have our 2 hammocks for the days where the weather's appropriate. They have tarps that are Hennessy ones that are camping hammocks, so they'll be safe from the rain and the bugs and stuff. But if it gets really hectic or there's no trees, we have our tent there. So we have a versatile setup that allows us our own personal space, protection from the weather. I think being Australians, I mean, people think that there's things that can kill you in Australia, and there's a lot of them, and a lot of them are small, but nothing's going to tear you apart limb by limb like a bear. And so, I mean, that's, apart from hypothermia, what we're most cautious of. So we've been talking to a lot of people. We have some good strategies, and we have a couple of friends who we're having dinner with in Juneau who are like, we'll give you the bear talk, you'll be fine. To answer your question about the distance as well, so we'll be doing an average of 35 kilometers a day. So in really nice, really calm, lovely conditions, including lunch, that would probably take about 8 to 10 hours. So yeah, because we paddle about 5 kilometers an hour. I'm slow, Lucy's a bit faster, don't like to tell her that. So yeah, that's obviously in very nice conditions. So realistically, we'll be paddling at least 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. Some of those days are 45 kilometers, where we really have to knuckle down and get into it, and some of them will be 12, where we can get up, have breakfast, kayak for a bit, look at some whales, pick some berries, eat some seaweed, and then read our books for the rest of the day. It's obviously going to be very impacted by the weather, but also the tide. So in some parts of the inside passage, between the mainland and the islands, it's only about 100 meters maximum. So you really do not want to be paddling against the tide. We never want to be paddling against the tide, but especially in those conditions. Sometimes you can't pass through the channel unless it's in the slack point of the tide, where there's no movement of water, because the tide goes so fast through there that it creates rapids, whitewater rapids, class 3 rapids. So that's going to have a huge impact on us. Something that is amazing here compared to back home is that the days will be, especially in the summer, it'll be light until 10 o'clock at night, or around about 10 o'clock at night. So we have to normally get up really early and kayak and have only half an hour for lunch and get to camp before the mosquitoes get out, so that's around like 6 p.m. and it's dark by 7:30, and here, we'll have much longer days. So in some cases we can wait out entire tidal cycles if we need to, and paddle when the conditions are right. And some days we will ultimately have to paddle against the tide. But when we paddle with the tide, we can double our speed. And the other thing that's different, and we'll come to your question, is there's water in Canada, which is like such a big thing for us. In Australia, water is always, drinking water I'm talking about, is always your biggest problem. When we were paddling in Australia, we'd have to carry so much water with us, which makes the boat heavy, and you're constantly thinking about where am I going to get my next water. When we did our week-long kayak, we definitely hailed some sailors. And we're like, hey, look at us, give us some water please. We're really desperate. We were on our last bit of water and we weren't sure if the next water point, because we'd assumed there was water at one water point and it was empty, and we were worried that the next one was going to be empty. It wasn't, but we got more water the day before that. Here there's so many glacial creeks and rivers, and it's very, like, it's good. Sorry, what was your question?
What is your favorite thing about the other person that makes you excited to spend 3 months with them?
So the question for YouTube was, what is your favorite thing about each other, and why that makes us excited to paddle together for 3 months. I think my favorite thing about Mathilde, like in reference to this trip, is like that nothing phases her. Like she says I'm faster, but her paddling speed doesn't change. It doesn't matter if it's a beautiful day, a horrible day, if we're against the tide or with the tide, she's got the same speed, which is actually incredible. And so I'm excited about that, and I'm also excited that it doesn't matter if I make a mistake, or if things go wrong, or if I'm hangry, or tired, or a bit bitchy sometimes. She's just nice all the time. There's no blaming when I'm not a details person, I'm a big picture person. So I'm excited because Mathilde's like good, consistent, kind, and like laughs at my stupid puns. Not all the time. I'm super excited because
well, with Lucy, she literally finds the joys in absolutely everything that we see. So. An example was when we were kayaking one day and we saw something yellow floating in the water, and Lucy was like, oh, it's probably some kind of rubbish, we better go and get it. And she paddled over to it, and it was a bunch of perfect bananas, perfect ripe bananas, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone that happy to eat a banana, but also just like the pure joy of even when you know, a bird glides overhead or a turtle pops its head out of the water for about the 200th time that day, or we're paddling against the tide, there's wind everywhere and she's singing to me even when I'm completely ignoring her because I'm trying not to die. So yeah, the positive in everything is an amazing aspect, and it's something that's going to be really, really important because it won't always be easy. Yeah. Also the bigger picture side of things, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to plan this trip. I would have been stuck on like what font the newsletter was in or something. So. Are there any more questions?
Glacier Bay is quite a ways out of the lake. I'm wondering, did you pick Glacier Bay just because it's an area of outstanding beauty, or you wanted to get a good start on the rest of the bays?
We picked Glacier Bay, so I had a lot to do with where we were going in the beginning. I picked Glacier Bay for two reasons. Glaciers, I love glaciers. I really wanted to see if we could actually see the Muir Glacier. It's retracted so much over the years. As both of us have done like a lot of work around campaigning in the climate science world and talking about climate change, and it's been a topic of discussion within that. So just from a scientific point of view, it's interesting. It's also a whale conservation zone. I'm just so excited to see a whale from my kayak in so many ways. Been watching YouTube videos of it for like a year now, the same ones over and over again. So that's one reason. Also because like, I mean, it's terrifying and so exhilarating, the thought of kayaking around icebergs, right? We don't have them in Australia. Icebergs are not a thing where we're from. The crocodiles, they're just as terrifying. But you know, like the thought of being around ice and paddling through that area, of being remote. I love people. Not a great fan of society as a whole. So you know, getting as far away as I can on a boat was also another. You know, incentive. I think it's interesting. We are still trying to figure out how we're going to get into. Originally, we were going to be dropped off at Mount Wright, which is like a ferry that goes out there, but it doesn't. We've just recently found out it doesn't start running until the 29th of May. So we may paddle all the way up there and back again, or we may like get a local to help us out, or we may like piggyback on a tour. We'll see. So we're still TBC on the logistics of that. I think also we went up that far in Alaska and then didn't go into the Muir Inlet and into Glacier Bay, that we'd regret that for the rest of our lives. Even if we're in there halfway through going, why have we done this? It's still snowing, but yeah, we'll get back to you on that excitement. It says it's going to be sunny on Monday, but then snowing on Tuesday.
Any more questions?
Yeah. So I think this lady and then one there. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you can see me. I said yes. So I'm pretty exhilarated about your trip. I think it's really, really exciting. And I'm wondering, have you, you know, how do you determine all that information in terms of your mapping, the weather, the tides, and then communicating with others? Like you said, you'd be communicating with others on updates for your safety. So if you figured it, like, are you doing that by time, are you doing it by weather, or is it just by luck?
We've been really lucky to have some amazing kayakers who are women mentor us. So Sandy Robson, she kayaked from Germany to Australia. 5 years it took her. Germany to Australia. Yeah. Freya Hofmeister, who's circumnavigated Australia, she's circumnavigated Greenland, she's circumnavigated, I think, Africa as well, like everything. She's a incredible kayaker. She took time to talk to us. Justine Kergarven, I think is her last name. She lives on Vancouver Island. She also helped us out. So we asked them, like, and Justine and Freya have also paddled the Inside Passage. There's also a Facebook group called Kayakers of the Inside Passage, and there's a bunch of amazing kayakers who have either done the whole thing or done parts of it. So the answer to your question is 2 years of planning, a lot of help, and a lot of late nights. But Mathilde can expand. Just not being afraid to ask anyone. So we've never asked someone a question and not benefited from it. And we want to share that on to other people as well. But basically a lot of research. And we're still learning every single day. We learned some things today as well. And it'll probably keep on going until we finish in Victoria. But that's the exciting part of it. We're very thankful for the internet and reading books. Yeah. But this is the first time, like I hadn't seen a chart before this planning this trip. I didn't even know they weren't called maps. I thought Lucy was going to slap me when I called it a map for the first time. We can give you more detail afterwards if you've got specific questions. Yeah.
So I understand in the last 2 years you've done all the planning. So specifically, I guess my question will be, while you're traveling, while you're en route, how are you going to contact people? How are you going to tell people if there was an emergency? How are you going to check in? Are you following a regular schedule, or do you have regular allies in each place?
Ethan, do you want to stand up? Come on, you can do it. This is Ethan. He's our emergency guy on our support team. So he's one of a bunch of people who are helping us. And basically we have a schedule of exactly how far we're going to paddle each day, where we think we're going to be. We have our InReach as well as a personal locator beacon. Both of these we can tell people by GPS message where exactly we are each day, and we'll be sending that to our support team. So they will always know where we are. The personal locator beacon and the InReach both have emergency buttons, which will send the Coast Guard to us. So they'll call us first and be like, are you okay? And we'll be like, oh yeah, I just dropped my spot track, my thing in the kayak and it's set off. Or they'll try and call us and we won't answer, and then hopefully someone will come pick us up. Otherwise, it's like every time we get into a small town, we'll like hunt down a computer or some Wi-Fi or a bit of reception and send you guys updates. Yeah. There'll be sort of a live tracking map of where we're going on our website, and like at the end of each week they'll put up like where we've been, and hopefully we can have photos of the campsite and all the whales we see as well added to that, so people can follow that journey. We also have radios to communicate with each other as well as the Coast Guard, and also to get any weather forecasts and things like that. Last question.
Actually, you guys just answered.
Okay, great. I just answered the question. Okay, that works. Good. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer them, and we'll be hanging around for a bit. So not too long, because we've been up to like 1:30 a.m. or 2 a.m. every night. I'm not sure if it's the jet lag or the things we have to do before we go, but we'll hang around for a bit to chat. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much to Lucy and Mathilde for coming along and telling us about your experience in the trip.